Ahead in the Bahamas tonight, Sandals employees turning out to take a strike vote. We'll have that story ahead.
The Court of Appeal with a special sitting and a special visitor.
And top of the class, the brightest high schoolers honored today. The Bahamas Tonight. The National Report begins now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
Industrial action could be looming over the Sandals Royal Bahamian Resort. Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keish Latterly. Well, a strike could happen at the Cable Beach Resort if employees and members of the Bahamas Hotel Maintenance Allied Workers Union don't get what they term a satisfactory response from the resort's management. Our Clint Watson was at the poll today.
The 400 members of the Bahamas Hotel Maintenance and Allied Workers Union claim management at Sandals Resort has refused to meet after reportedly agreeing a year ago to commence contract negotiations. President of the union, Lyndon Taylor, alleges this is just one of many infractions.
People are just tired, man. Tired of being victimized on the property, rights of the workers being taken away. We, the union, can't even access the premises without being stopped by the security. They're not allowing us on the property even visit our own membership and taking advantage of the persons that are on there. And quite frankly, the folks are just tired.
Taylor says they're hoping the results of the vote will send a resounding message to the resort executives.
The Bahamians should be first and foremost. This is what the government said now. Bahamians first. Quite frankly, at this resort, it's like foreigners first. Here.
The government recently revealed that Sandals has decided to move its corporate headquarters to the Bahamas and will be constructing a building and staffing it sometime soon. The resort also plans to expand and upgrade its facilities. The investment could prove significant. Despite this, Taylor is hoping the government would not forget their plight.
Let the investor know what the terms and conditions are, not to take advantage of your people. What are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, because you're investing this amount of money, you could treat the Bahamians in a different manner? No. You're the government. We put you there. You look good for our investment.
One of the things done differently in this particular poll is the observance by representatives of the hotel. Sandals wanted to ensure that every person casting a ballot are actually employees of the hotel, something that's welcomed by the union.
We are not fighting Sandals, and I want to make that very clear. Only thing we are doing, we're saying, look, the workers have a right to have a union. We have gone through the legal system. The legal system came down that the workers have the right. We say that it's been from 2009. This is now 2014. At least the employer should allow the union to access the property to be able to deal with the workers.
Sandals Royal Bahamian officials maintain they have and has always been a responsible employer that abides by the laws of the Bahamas, and they find this stance by the union extremely baffling given that both parties continue to meet on an ongoing basis on issues, but also that a matter is still before the Court of Appeal. Resort officials also say it's unfortunate that the union would attempt to disrupt operations when the hotel's occupancy is beginning to rise.
Bahamian people are not stupid. 6 years is a long time to try to even come on the property. I'm not talking about even negotiating. They're refusing for that to happen.
Meantime, employees say they will not be deterred from their mission at hand. They believe they'll have victory, and at the end of the day, their voices will be heard. Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Well, Sandals employees were successful in their strike bid today. ZNS News received the unofficial results just a short time ago, and we can tell you that 187 employees have voted yes to a strike, while 3 voted no and 3 ballots were spoiled. ZNS News spoke with President of the union, Lyndon Taylor, who says he's pleased with the results and that the union will meet to discuss their next move.
It appears members of the Bahamas Trade Union Congress may not be in support of a value-added tax system. Today, various union heads under the Congress met to hear more about the taxation system and how it will work. President of the organization, Obi Ferguson, says it's important for his members to have information so that the best decision can be made. Ferguson says they expect to have a final decision within a week's time and will make that position known to the public. However, he did share his preliminary thoughts.
We are to focus more on the growing the economy, as opposed to this whole question of VAT. It seemed to me that the VAT may, and this is preliminary, may not be in the best interest of the working man in our community. But my colleagues obviously will have their views on it. We will look at it in a more objective fashion. We will draw a conclusion, but I can assure you, we will come down strongly in support of growing the economy as opposed to just levying taxes.
Managing Director of the Public Hospitals Authority, Herbert Brown, has been reinstated to his position following a decision in the Supreme Court.
Brown's attorney, Obie Ferguson, says the courts agreed with their position that there were no grounds for the action.
The letter that's supposed to be a letter of suspension ended up being a letter of administrative leave for 2 weeks. The letter never said anything about what he did wrong. So it was difficult for us to figure out whether he came to work late, whether he is off the property when he ought not be there. There was nothing in it to suggest what he did wrong. And the rule of natural justice requires a public officer is not a regular worker. A public officer has statutory protection. There are procedures that must be followed. And what we're examining really is the process by which they use to arrive at the decision to put him on administrative leave. That we're not questioning the authority. We're questioning the procedure.
In other news, Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson is applauding the President and Justices of the Court of Appeal for their performance last year in disposing of appeals and other related applications. As a result, she says there's no backlog at that court.
Statistics also show that there are no backlogs in this court. In spite of the physical challenges of the courts, your lordships have been able to manage caseloads well and dispose of cases in a timely manner. I'm confident that our efforts to create a 21st century court reporting unit and a public defenders unit, a process which is well on the way, will positively impact the administration of justice. I acknowledge and thank you, Madam President, for your continuous advocacy, support, and sage advice in these matters, most especially on the need for public defenders.
Now, the Attorney General's comments came during the special sitting of the Court of Appeal today. The proceedings were streamed live over the internet, representing a first for that court. Well, in attendance at the event, Prime Minister Perry Christie said his presence marked the first time a Prime Minister has even attended. Tonight, Fern Carey tells us that during the proceedings, the Court of Appeal President spoke out about an issue of public concern involving members of the judiciary.
Expressing concern about the public's perception that judges are responsible for the increasing rate of crime due to the granting of bail, Court of Appeal President Justice Anita Allen called on judges to be more accountable. At the same time, she stressed that it is not her intention to defend or scold the judiciary.
Accountable to the people we serve and by whose acceptance we continue to exist. I venture the view that it may be because of this seeming lack of accountability that the perception that we are responsible for the spiraling crime due to our supposed liberal and capricious grant of bail persists. I surmise that had the judiciary been more punctilious about its accountability, the public would not now be so readily inclined to blame us. Indeed, the public would have been aware that bail pending trial is a constitutional right.
Meantime, she described the performance of the Court of Appeal last year as impressive.
Between December 1st, 2012 and November 30th, 2013, some 415 matters were listed for hearing. Of that number, 229 substantive appeals and 111 applications were disposed of. 14 decisions were reserved, of which 3 have been since delivered. Some 61 matters had to be adjourned, mostly because of the non-delivery of transcripts. Additionally, the registrars have heard and disposed of 75 summonses to settle records and have taxed 24 bills of costs.
Justice Allen said efforts to make judges more accountable will help to strengthen the public's confidence in the justice system moving forward. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
The government is making steady progress to obtain the country's airspace, a commitment made to Bahamians in the government's Charter for Governance. Minister with responsibility for transport and aviation, Glenys Hannah Martin, said they hope to have the matter concluded soon for Bahamians to benefit. She noted that the committee meets tomorrow and a meeting with FAA and U.S. State Department has also been planned to conclude talks. While we may not have the capacity to manage airspace on our own just yet, Hannah Martin said we must take the steps to make it possible.
Our airspace is actually managed by several countries. So while we speak with the United States of America, we have to speak with neighboring nations, including the Turks and Caicos, with the United Kingdom, Haiti, and I think the Dominican. And so we have to be in dialogue with them also. But the outcome of this is that, what we anticipate is that the FAA, that we would strike an arrangement with the FAA where they continue, at least in the short term, to manage our airspace, but a long terms within which that we are able to govern the terms.
The minister added that fees for using the airspace could go a long way to further develop the country.
The FAA collects those fees and they utilize it for the development of the aviation sector. U.S. aircraft are exempt from these fees. Bahamian aircraft pay these fees. So we have to there's something that's a bit odd about that picture. So we have to find a way of regularizing the relationship so that the issue of the collection of overflight fees is on the table, and that we understand that, that the government, our government, the Bahamas government, manages the way in which those fees are collected and how they're disseminated.
In an effort to curb the significant number of traffic fatalities throughout the country, the Ministry of Transport and Aviation established a National Road Safety Committee for ensuring that best practices and standards are carried out. A teleconference linking the various islands together was held at police headquarters this morning, where island administrators and road traffic officials from several islands committed to the program.
I have begun discussions with the Minister of Education to reintroduce driver's education in select high schools. We have completed education materials for primary school children, which we hope to share in schools nationwide. And the minister has already indicated a willingness after having reviewed the material. A website. We have established a Facebook page and shall shortly launch an official website. The Road Traffic Act. A review of the Road Traffic Act is poised to be undertaken. Jitney drivers. Tonight, we shall be engaging jitney drivers on defensive driving, rules of the road, and on matters of standards, conduct, dress, and decorum, so as to enhance the public transportation system on this island.
Hannah Martin added that they will also be working with traffic officers to ensure that road rules are strictly enforced.
We expect, in collaboration with the Royal Bahamas Police Force, to implement a no-tolerance system where penalties will be imposed, and by the Road Traffic Department, I could speak for them, inclusive of possible suspension or revocation of public service licenses in the appropriate cases. Driving schools. Draft regulations have been completed and will soon be introduced for the implementation of formal standards and criteria for the licensing of driving schools in the country. Currently, there are none.
In our first look at weather, we have a starload front boundary across Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Bimini. It is firing up some showers and thunderstorms, which could be heavy at times, some of which are also dropping down into the Berry Islands. But outside of our studios just now, we have just a few clouds, temperatures 77 degrees, your relative humidity 83%. Winds are out of the south-southeast at 4 knots, barometric pressure 1,018.0 millibars. That's about 30.06 inches, and it is rising. But stay tuned. Temperatures around the family of islands, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
And still ahead tonight, high flyers in education honored.
And then we've got highlights from high flyers in the gym. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.